this will be the first point for our retreat today, to have this missionary spirit with generosity. The second point is commitment. We could say that Titus Brandsma was a committed man, committed with his world, committed with his society, committed with the church and the order of his time. We could say that he was a man of solidarity who made his own the suffering of the people, of the men and women of his time. I could underline this sensibility of Titus for the needs of the people around him. Students, friends, relatives, Carmelite brethren. He was always very sensitive, to the situations of the people around him. When he started working in Nijmegen was the city of the university. When he started working there, many students came to the pension in which he was living. There was no Carmelite friary, no convent, and he was living in a pension, in a bed and breakfast, let us say. And the lady who was the owner of that pension was angry because she said, "Oh, Father Titus, you cannot receive all these students. All the time they are coming here to speak with you." And Titus answered, a professor is not only the person who teaches, but also the person who listens, the students. And that's why the students considered him to be a very close professor, a very close friend, who was always willing to listen the problems of those young people, So he was always very sensitive about the needs of the people around him. I come back to the text. Even in the most dramatic moments of his life, he felt compassion for the people in the concentration camp. You know probably how Titus was killed. He was killed with an injection of phenic acid. He was taken to the infirmary, to the revier, that was the word they used in the concentration camp. Nobody wanted to go there. Nobody wanted to go to the infirmary. Do you know why? Because there was the rumor, and it was true, that they made experiments with the sick people, with the patients. Terrible experiments, terrible. We have even photographs of that. For instance, they were testing a sort of cream for the German soldiers that were parachuted in the Northern Sea. It was very cold sea, very, very cold. So they were testing a sort of cream. So what did they do? They took one of the prisoners and said they put him in water, in frozen water, and put cream. Oh, let us see. He died after 25 minutes. So this is not very good. We have to test another one. So terrible, terrible experiments. Even they put malaria in the teeth. They injected malaria in the teeth, and terrible experiments. So nobody wanted to go there because they knew that that was a terrible place. So when a patient, a sick person, was too sick, too weak, and was not useful for the experiments, they used to kill him with phenic acid, with an injection of phenic acid. And we have the declaration of the nurse who put the injection to Titus. The name is Titia It's a strange name, means X, anonymous, you know, X, no name. So that's, she was in jail for 12 years in Germany. She was accused of being a war criminal. She couldn't go to Holland because she could be hanged the day after, like many other doctors. So she was in jail in Germany. And 12 years after the end of the war, she said to the chaplain of the jail that she had killed Titus Brandsma. So the chaplain, the priest, called the Carmelites, and the Carmelites interrogated her for the beatification process. It's a very mysterious character, Titia, because she was always hiding her identity, and probably she had a new life, husband, perhaps children, you know, and she didn't want to be considered a war criminal. It's a very mysterious character. Some people say probably she was not a woman, she was a man, because in the records of the concentration camps there are not women nurses. And some people say no, she was a woman because the tribunal had her in front of them. So there is a debate among historians and so on. But in any case, and this is the important thing, in any case, the declaration of that woman is very interesting because she says, that little man looked at me and he had compassion of me. You know, this sensibility, this Titus was sensitive even in the dramatic last moments of his life. You know, this nurse was killing him. That little man looked at me and had compassion of me. So Titus was always a committed man, a compassionate man, a man of solidarity with the human beings who were around him. And this is also a big lesson for us, you know. I think it was Charles Dickens, I'm not very sure, but I think it was Charles Dickens who spoke about a telescopic charity. He said, oh, we have a telescopic charity. Strange, eh? Telescopic charity. He said, we are very, we feel compassion and solidarity for all those who are in very far away lands. You know, they are in Africa, there was an earthquake somewhere, and we are very charitable with them, and we organize recollection of money, and of course that is very good. That is very, very good. But we have to start our compassion and our solidarity with our neighbors. And sometimes we are very worried about people who are far away, but we are not so worried about the people who live with us. And here is my invitation to you to open our eyes, the people who live with us. Sometimes my neighbor is a foreigner, is an strange people for me. We are not able to hear the cry of all those who are near to us. Probably they don't need money, or they don't need food, but they need time, they need attention, they need tenderness. Some years ago, probably you remember, there was a big campaign, probably here also, but in Spain was very strong, about the so-called 0.7% of the product of the country for solidarity. You know, that was a big movement. 0.7% of the production of the country for solidarity with other countries, with the poor. Zero. And I was working with young people at that time, and I like to provoke them, because they were very full of solidarity and so on. But several times I said, we have to question a little bit. And I said, do you dedicate also the 0.7% to your grandfather, who is alone, who is in a nursing home? That's boring, to go to the nursing home. This is also 0.7%. Do you dedicate that time to your parents, to your studies? So solidarity starts with those who are around us. Which is the main commandment of the Christian faith? Love your neighbor. Your neighbor. Because sometimes, I don't want to be too critical. Of course, anything we do for people who are far away suffering is great, is holy, I'm not criticizing that. What I am saying is, it's easier to love someone you don't know far away than to love those who are beside you. Sometimes it's your father, sometimes it's your son, sometimes it's your wife, sometimes it's your husband, sometimes it's your daughter, sometimes it's your brother in the community life, in the Carmelite life, your brother, that is, you see him alone or sad or without enthusiasm. So we should imitate this attitude of Titus, not to lose our sensibility for the suffering of the people. In the church, we have put aside a little bit the word compassion, and we use more solidarity, because solidarity is more modern or whatever. Solidarity is a wonderful word, of course, but compassion is much more intense. To make mine the feelings of the other, to be compassionate. Cum passio in Latin. To make the passion, the feelings of the other mine. To share suffering, the joys. Compassion is a wonderful word. And we have to be careful because, well, we are all very young here. Most of us young people. But when you have more and more birthdays, it's very easy to not be so sensitive, We have seen too many people dying, we have seen too many problems on television, and sometimes heart becomes hard. It's only one letter. Heart becomes hard. And that's why we have to be very, very careful about that, not to lose compassion. That's a nice prayer. That's a nice prayer. God, make me compassionate. Give me a sensitive heart. Don't allow my heart to become too hard. Sometimes we see suffering and we change channel of television or whatever. But let suffering of the people impact my own life, and I think that's very important. And Titus is a good inspiration also for that. How we are about time? Oh, we have plenty of time. Yeah. Okay. This idea of Titus is also a key idea for the church. You remember the beginning of Gaudium et Spes, one of the main documents of the Second Vatican Council. I'm going to read it for you. It's in here. Gaudium et Spes, one of the main documents of Vatican II, starts in this way. The joys and the hopes. Gaudium et Spes. The joys and the hopes. The griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ. Indeed, nothing genuinely human fails to raise an echo in their hearts. It's a wonderful paragraph of the Second Vatican Council. The joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted, these are the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the followers of Christ. You know.